Yeah, I'm Kenny Vieth, president of ACT Research, along with my colleague Jim Meil, and we just got done with Seminar 73, and we're going to talk about it. And Jim, as we were preparing, we were in the middle of talking about tariffs, and the point I was going to make is one of the things with the combination of steel and aluminum tariffs on U.S. manufacturers, and you see like a 25% tariff on the Koreans and the Japanese, and so if the average price of a car coming in from Japan or Korea is $50,000, the price of that car is going to rise by, call it $10,000 to make the math easy. I think the problem is U.S. manufacturers are looking at, basically the same cost impact. So there's no competitive advantage being gained. And if anything, you're whacking your domestic manufacturers, because all of a sudden you're going to have a 10 or 15% price increase on cars next year.
Well, I think one of the points that our speakers raised, and perhaps enough to be a continuous theme of our seminar, is that tariffs have been a game changer, and what's in the crosshairs of tariffs are goods. As a general rule, and I think almost a universal rule, you do not levy tariffs on services. You levy tariffs on goods. And guess what our business in a very fundamental way is all about? Freight, transportation, the movement of goods, trying to get stuff from point A to point B. So we're back to saying, what does it take to bring to an end this freight recession that we've been burdened with in the industry for the last 3.5 years? Tariffs don't exactly help the cause.
Yeah. So maybe do we go on and talk about something else, or we just keep beating tariffs? Because I think one of the takeaways, or I guess the tee up that you just gave me is that tariffs are generating goods inflation. And goods inflation, if you pick your number, say 5% across all goods, we have the same number of dollars to spend. Everything we're buying costs 5% more, so we buy 5% less. And kind of piling onto your point, if we're buying 5% less, that's less freight going into trucks at a time when the trucking industry is already beaten up, after the 3.5 years of overcapacity, and now we're pushing down. We've been oversupplied. Now we're pushing down on demand.
And riffing off the observations you just made, there are a few threads or a few themes that seem to be woven throughout the seminar, and that united the presentations of a number of our speakers. Number one was conditions right now are flat, and flat, unfortunately, for about as far as the eye can see. And I'm sure you, in your conversations today and in other contexts, get the question all the time, do you have some good news to deliver? When is this freight recession going to end? And you probably respond, perhaps more eloquently, but in words like, it's hard to see, it's going to be tough, and then that generates an anxiety, a fear that the top forecaster in the business doesn't have a GPS that shows how we get to the end of the woods and into bright daylight. And then we have one speaker, Paul Rosa, who said, I have a fear that when things take off, we won't be able to respond fast enough, and we'll have a replay of 2021. So that's another anxiety too. We can't figure out when it's going to happen, and when it does, it'll come in spades, and lo and behold, we'll be behind the 8 ball again.
As it always is. And I think 2021 was was an excruciatingly hard example because of the global supply chain mess that was driven by that was driven by COVID. But we can go to any cycle, and from the time truckers decide they want trucks to the time the OEMs recognize the cycle is really happening, to the time suppliers can ramp up their supply chains, you've got a 9 to 12 month backlog that is already built. So yeah, getting rid of immigrants is I think going to cause wage inflation. Well, getting rid of immigrants is going to cause wage inflation. Yeah. And going back to say 2018 and 19, the industry used to drug test for marijuana, and in 2019, everybody stopped drug testing for marijuana because they could not find warm bodies, and immigrants have been providing labor that's allowed kind of the domestic population to go work in factories, and so I think the excruciatingly tight labor supply we were seeing back in 2019 is going to be a challenge when the industry decides we need labor again.
So now you're starting to create a scenario where you say, okay, how do things change? And one of the challenges of our message is not clearly visible yet, and that leads to the freight recession, 3.5 years long, and you say flat into the rest of 2025 and into 2026. Now that puts on the table, is this the new normal? And the boom times of 2021 and early 2022 are so long ago that maybe we'll never taste that again. Yeah. And we just have to learn how to optimize and how to rationalize and deal with it. And if the good times come, the good times come. But in the meantime, cost out, cost out, cost out. I think that was another one of the themes that came out in over the course of the last 2 days.
Yeah, and that's an interesting observation. I think my knee-jerk pushback to it is, and again, it could be right, but if we go all the way back to deregulation, so going all the way back to 1981, the industry was basically in a constant state of overcapacity for 20 years. Up and really until the recession of 2001. I think a freight rate in 1981 was $1.21 a mile, and a freight rate in 2000 was $1.21 a mile, and it was that takeout of capacity that really wiped out swaths of owner operators and small businesses. And then we had the pre-buy, and so we saw freight rates improve above anything we'd seen in the previous 20 years in the early 2000s. And then we had the global financial crisis, which took even more capacity out of the marketplace, and we had a renaissance, if you will, in carrier profitability, in all-time records, even before the pandemic period. We had records in 14 and 15, records in 18 and 19. All-time records were blown away in 21 and 22. So maybe if we don't have that giant capacity takeout, or we don't take out more capacity more seriously, maybe just grinding mediocrity may indeed be the new normal.
Yeah. And I want to put one word on the table. In our current era, one of the sexy topics out there is technology. And I think we can talk about technology in two senses. Number one, AI and all the benefits and the miracles that AI is supposed to develop. Wasn't a big theme of our conference, but it was mentioned. The one thing that we do have to be cognizant of is that all that wondrous technology, by and large, is, again, services-based. And even the the goods that stand behind it in the way of data centers, in the way of power equipment, utility stuff, that tends not to be freight intensive. So it doesn't give our business a big boost. A little bit closer to home, which is new propulsion technology, autonomy. We had our terrific crew, Ann Rundle and Lydia Vieth, talk about it. But in the current Trump environment, I guess push out is the order of the day.
So in the first case with AI, I do think the freight market doesn't benefit so much, but the vocational market should benefit greatly.
Good point.
And so there's a lot of utility construction that needs to be done. There's the data centers that need to be built, and yeah, if there's an argument for freeing up labor, it's the productivity. The productivity that's driven from AI freeing up kind of menial work, and as our friend Paul Traub, he likes to talk about the rule of 72, but it's also I think he's the first one I ever heard say the economy's non-inflationary speed limit is percent change in population plus percent change in productivity. So we could be looking at a at a decade of maybe a new trend growth level for the U.S. non-inflationary trend growth level for the U.S. economy. As far as new technologies go for the industry, though. You're talking about the uncompetitiveness of U.S. manufacturers broadly. The Chinese and the Europeans, to Ann's point earlier, the Chinese and the Europeans aren't going to stop working on new technologies, and the risk is I think the Chinese arguably have already stolen a march on most of the world, and we are, by backing away from new technology, allowing the Chinese to be the ones that dictate, even as we're trying to slow their economy down with tariffs, we're giving them free rein in new technology.
Well, that's a happy note. Not clear for next year, but somewhere down the road, things will get better.
The cure for low prices is low prices.